Hi there. Isn't it funny how power and money rule the world? It's like a fog dances in front of our eyes, and we're just left with a vague feeling we should have dominion over our own lives, or the world should be better. It seems the person who puts themselves out for others, people that help the homeless and hungry, or those that get satisfaction from simply helping others, those people are now restricted by laws to ban sharing or giving food to the homeless or needy. They are penalised for their very humanity, while those that have no voice and are the bedrock of everything wrong with society, such as the homeless, the hungry and the poor, are left to get by with no help, while those that are self-righteously outraged enough to shout their entitlements into the headlines of today can now be called a different pronoun. Cue slow clap. Were there people marching in the street against needy people being fed for free? Is it just another way to make us feel separated from our fellows, or a reinforcement to make us look the other way so the homeless believe no one cares or can help, other than an officially stamped organisation? You have to understand there's an agenda. Meanwhile, other people are holding on with the strongest grip they can muster to a falsely created ladder of want sold to us through schools, the media and government repetition. It has too many people below us to let us go down, so we must, willingly or reluctantly, climb towards the money god, just to fit in and prevent us falling to become one of those voiceless souls. Power is being used to stifle imagination and those smaller than corporate sized from competing. Those that struggle on in a simple small business are made to adhere to strict new guidelines or rules continually created or changed. If they are becoming successful, they will be bought out or crushed. What happened to the person selling some extra eggs from chickens on a small farm? They may need organic certification if they intend to sell them as such. They may need to grade the eggs, as if people can't just look at them, and stamp them with indelible but non-toxic ink. They can't compete with those that buy a select spot on a shelf at a massive price drop, along with discounts down the chain from buying feed to buying empty cartons. These rules and more are easy for a corporation to overcome, as they can be absorbed by selling vast amounts of product. The mom and pop, however, cannot hope to compete, let alone actually make a humble profit. They are blocked more often than not by legislation and laws that on the surface look okay, but are implemented in such a way to cause the maximum migraine possible over the longest time. It's curious though, the corporations are now being given more flexibility and freedom than individuals. Have a look at the legislation on net neutrality. There have been laws in place to stop companies on the internet from restricting the speed and bandwidth of others, or stopping you seeing certain websites. Seems reasonable to at least start on a level playing field, doesn't it? Now the American government are looking at reversing this, so that companies could penalise certain sites or behaviours in downloading or uploading, but are left to their own devices on the simple assumption they won't do this. Well, what was the idea of the fair play laws in the first place then? Has anything changed? Does this mean laws for individuals will be reversed as well, so everyone can be left to their own devices to make decisions based on what they feel is right? You can bet it's for a specific purpose, and those that say it can be used to crush alternative news may just be correct. After all, the fake news rhetoric kind of backfired in a fittingly humorous way. Any way you look at it, abuse of power is rife today, and it leads, once uncovered, to lack of respect for those that did it. This is why it must be covered up at all levels. Once exposed, it's either swept under the rug, redirected by pointing at others, ridiculed in the hope no more digging will occur, or scapegoated with the promise of a thorough and full investigation, neither of which happens. I suspect the resets of societies long gone were almost certainly due to abuse of power. So why do we continue to give it away? Every time there are people wanting to start a fair society, the sociopaths eventually appear and needle their way in. They slowly take over using inbreeding and promotion of like-minded groups and start to make laws that favour their own agenda. Unfortunately, gone are the days of moving elsewhere and starting again, as the land masses and borders are now set for the world order to execute full influence. The forms of power are well known. Knowledge is power, so it's hoarded, stored and taken from you by electronic means. This was made possible by groups in the past, like missionaries or conquering armies, who got the sacred information and sent it back to the church before dealing with the source, or they just burnt it from public view like Alexandria. Beauty is power, so it's encouraged to make itself exclusive to catwalks, film, magazines, music. Physical beauty is bought to hang on walls of the rich. Strength is power, so laws and enforcers are put in place to keep us in line. Like everything though, power also is continued through what the majority believes. If enough people do not believe it, then it is not so. If 60% of people decided to believe in a different form of government tomorrow, the current one would find it very difficult to function after trying to force people into line. If most people switched to believing enforcers were being paid for with their money and therefore should uphold common law and be the best example of citizenry, like they seemed to be in the 60s, then surely they would have to become that. If you don't think it all comes down to belief, try looking up the ravens of the Tower of London. The Queen keeps ravens that have had their wings clipped, so they can't fly away. They're well looked after by servants. But why? Well, there's an old story that says that should the ravens ever leave the tower, the kingdom would be lost. I wonder whose belief they're trying to keep. The people's or their own? Maybe both. The problem here is that with continual repeating of the government or corporation's point of view through current media, laws, TV, film, the chances of getting to the threshold needed for a change is extraordinarily low, made harder by eliminating those voices who question the status quo, like the previously mentioned alternative media. The idea that we create the way we live in the world is actually true. The only problem is there is no unrelenting voice on the side of making things better. It's a difference between an endless tape playing to everyone saying, "You're no good, you should do everything that others do, and you'll never amount to anything," versus a continual loop of positive thinking, where the main message is helping and supporting each other and being the best we can be. I think we need more of the latter, or even better, none at all. Maybe just the 10 so-called commandments to start from, and a true belief you should treat others the way you want to be treated yourself. I liken those who lust for power today as people given leave to walk slowly down a strangely outstretched corridor. While they walk, they are sung to on both sides by possessed mirrors that verbally bow, scrape and extol the imaginary virtues of the person temporarily in front of them. Each footstep is met with another praising about how either their physical or media presence is the fairest, all the while refusing to show the reflections of the fawning vampires that whirl between them and slowly extract what they need while seeming to busy themselves adorning the walkers in ever greater riches. Those metaphorical bloodsuckers in turn are all the while furtively eyeing the next potential victims from the general populace back at the start. Those who are crowding for the chance to see the chosen be advantaged, and call out in the hope to be seduced and corrupted by the mirror's fickle song for the promise of riches of their own beyond imagining. It's the tune, of course, that draws attention away from what's really happening and lulls the senses with each footfall. At last the walking corpse, free of its soul, reaches the only door at the end marked obscurity, and will walk blindly through. Their usefulness has been extracted. They'll never wake up from the repetition in the mirror's chorus, but will be seated instead and stripped of their abundance. They only have the strength now to continue to hum the melody to themselves until they are finally gone, having served no other purpose than to have furthered themselves at the expense of others and lured those who witnessed the trappings of fame to the same fate. Soon after, another mirror is hung in the corridor, and a small plaque placed beneath which shows those coming after, should they be interested to stop and read, the gifts this person had which were humbly shared with society for a time, and how they were taken too soon. For a moment now, the mirror flickers with the face of the recently departed, who at first seems confused, and then, as if catching a recent memory, begins to smile and hum a familiar composition. It remembers a recent journey and greets a fellow traveller in passing, encouraging them on their path to glory with a now well-learned song.